So second.
Recording in progress.
Call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners, November 7th at 5:15. Roll call. Commissioner Ernst,
Here.
Commissioner Engel,
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Here.
Commissioner Vogelsang. Here. Commissioner Wright. Here. Any changes to the agenda? No. Any public requests?
Okay. Hello?
Push the button.
There you go. One button.
Yeah.
Craig Landis, 1780 Southwest 22nd Ave, Boca Raton, Florida. Just returned from the meeting that these two ladies presented at. First and foremost, Aaron and Brianne, you did a really good job. Thank you. I know a lot of preparation went into it. I think you delivered it very well. Just some observations that I have from the meeting. I was pleading internally to just ask for conceptual approval, but I think they've given it. I think they've said we need more. That's number one. I think we have good support from at least 3 city council members. I saw them pushing back on the city manager to provide more feedback. I think that was good. I think it's time to move on. I think that golf first to generate revenue and help pay for other things is critical. Personally, I think you guys need to get the city in the boat with you. Get a planner, get the course manager. They've got to have some skin in the game. I think that's important to the success of this. I think you need to push to get an answer on third party versus internal funding. I have a very significant concern over the lack of, how do I say this? The lack of care for taxpayer dollars. Okay, the city pocketed $68 million. And I know that they tell you guys they don't want to put any money into this. But at the end of the day, we as citizens need to show up and tell them they need to get some skin in the game. I think the golf course would be a welcome addition to what we have already. I think they are complementary. I think that Jason, who runs the new course, would be terrific at running the whole thing. But to do this as a one-off with you guys and the city sitting on the sideline, I think is a recipe for failure. Anyways, with that said, thank you again for your efforts. I feel more positive than I've felt in a long time, and I think that your hard work is appreciated.
Thank you, Greg.
Went home and laid down for half an hour. I didn't even bother to change.
Jack, where's your whiteboard?
I left it at home. What happened was whiteboard, I had the whiteboard up next to me like that. And I looked down, it was all the pages gone. It was like, oh God. Jack McWalter, 1100 Northeast Terrace, Oakland. I share the same sentiments. Two ladies did a great job. That's right. Did a great job under the circumstances. I think I made a fool of myself. Some of the things that I wanted to say, which I didn't do. I passed this out to the city council, and I didn't give I was going to give a copy. You guys do well, but they you pass this. That's it. Well, I based my comments on Rick Hurd. That he sent me a document that he produced last year talking about ocean breeze. The point was, is that, and if you'll see a parentheses around, all the classes, he's doing an unbelievable number of classes. And I wanted to focus on a reason why we want to focus on a revenue producing project is a nine-hole executive course. It would accomplish what real direction all parks should have. It should be about our kids, our families. And this would be something that would be relatively easy to do. So that's why I gave this letter. Let me tell you a quick story. Probably don't know my background. I used to sell one of the largest computers in the world for IBM. $2 million to $3 million to $5 million deals. If I was in the same meeting as you guys were, and if they told me to go off and do a site plan, I'd be reluctant to do that. And they just wanted to write a proposal, and spend a lot of time and money and energy to produce a proposal, and then say, well, we don't like it, go do another one. Because all they're doing is jerking me off, excuse me. The basic concept in sales is what I call BARS, feature, advantage, response. I gave them a feature today. I gave them the advantage, and I never got a response. I think that you as a group didn't get a response either. We at the end said, yeah, go off and do a site plan. Well, for what? That whole box? For what? You know, I just think that, you know, I just thought, I know I'm not making any sense, but what I would do if I was in your situation is I would draft we call it the DOU document of understanding based on this meeting. I would say, this is what we agreed to, and this is what we're going to do, and this is what you're going to do in a timely fashion. Draft the letter quickly, 2 or 3 days, get it over to the city manager and maybe to the mayor. And this is what we're going to do, and focus on something simple. You've got about 30 different items. Look at it, butterfly deals. You know, I'm sorry I came down so hard on the pool, the Stearns. But I'm focusing on money. They're not going to give $10–20 million to build an Olympic-sized pool with a lot of electronic board and stands and stuff like that. You can't even get a 5-hole executive course for our kids. Swimmers from Europe and the whole world. You know, that was the intent of that woman who gave that presentation during when he presented the deal. I apologize for wandering around. Lee said Boca Memorial will pay for the revenue from Boca Memorial will pay for the pickleball courts. I thought that was good because now they're focusing on revenue. I think you ought to push the 9-hole executive course. And if it's done right, you're going to generate revenue, and that can help pay off. Example, the $1.5 million, I guess, is the interest on the loan or return on investment. Scott Singer said, give us some specifics. I think you got to do that. I think you got to just focus on the site plan for just the golf course. So keep it simple. Do not go in and try to get 10 or 20 different things, because it complicates things. Keep it simple. Just one site plan, adds as much detail to it as possible. Again, thank you for your service and hopefully we can get this done.
Thank you.
My name is Harold Chappie, 6200 Northwest 2nd Avenue. I think I went to the same meeting he went to, but I still think it's a little bit. One thing that really surprised me was when Aaron said that we're going to do a 3P for the golf course. You know, I thought we were going to basically bring somebody in to basically work with Merrill Lynch, Miller Lake, to basically design it, and then we're going to bring somebody in to basically run it. Because the speech that I made basically said that that the golf course could pay for all the maintenance of most of the facility there, which is totally wrong if you're going to do 3P, because you're not going to make any money for the 3P. The second thing is Scott Singer did say he said, you have the three things covered, stay with them. He said, you have the golf course, you have the walking trails and the bicycle paths. And he said that more or less they just stay with those three, instead of trying to muck everything up with trying to explain how you're gonna get this and that, it'll take years. So I think what you should do is just stay, do the layout of the golf course, the trails, bicycle lanes, and see what happens. That would be the three obstacles. The biggest obstacle is the golf course. You know, and what I said to them was basically, you know, as homeowners, we all don't do it right, or don't do it at all. We've all cheapened and done cut back on some expenses, and didn't do this, do that, but, or, you know, less expensive materials, all right us in the ass. You know, I said the thing to do is if you're gonna do the golf course, gotta do it right, otherwise nobody's gonna come. You know, and I think those three things you should focus in on, other than everything else. But like I said, I don't agree with the 3P for that golf course. You know, I mean, that's the money maker. That's what's gonna bring the money in. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, anybody else? Nope, anybody online? The approval of the minutes of the previous board meeting held on October 17th. Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, Joanne? Commissioner?
Yes.
Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Commissioner Williamson? Yes. Commissioner Ray? Yes. Motion passes. Okay, regular business, first item is solar panels at Sugar Sand Park. The Director of Farm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, on page 6 of your agenda packets is a brief memo on July 5th. We talked about the roofing at the Sugar Sand Park Community Center, and it was brought up to seek out some information about adding solar panels. So the roof is being designed so that solar panels could be added. We touched base with our local provider, Freedom Energy, and who analyzed the current electric consumption at the community center and the new specifications for the roof that's going to be put in there. And there's obviously an opportunity here to put solar panels on the roof for around $300,000. It would save about $1,600 a month in electric. This would take, obviously we need to put together a bid specs, an RFP, and go through that process to solicit other vendors and see what else is out there. I just wanted to give this as this is kind of probably where we would fall at as far as how much it would cost and what we could get from it. So before we continue with anything, I just wanted to get the board input on whether or not you want to move forward with engaging CPA to write up an RFP proposal and put it out there and get feedback on it.
Go ahead, Steve.
I think it's a great idea. But one thing that occurs to me, because I just went through this with somebody, is what the ramifications might be from insurance companies, because in order to install the solar panels, you have to drill through the roof. So, Bob, would you know?
In a residential setting, some companies are accepting the idea of having those installed. Where they get into the issue is when you're metered, because the contract that you sign with FP&L, I've been told, makes you responsible for anybody up the line, or if there's a problem with your solar panel that kicks back and does some damage to somebody else's property. And some companies will do it. More and more homeowners are going on the idea that they don't like the metering aspect of it and the liability that comes with it.
So does this have an effect on a commercial, well, or on a government building?
I think if they do it residentially, they probably would do it commercial, but it would be a principal idea to talk to our insurance company, as you mentioned, to make sure there's no issues. Yeah.
So assuming we speak to the insurance people, to our insurance companies, and make sure they're okay with it, then I think this is a fantastic idea. I would move ahead and have Giordano vendors to, know what's involved.
I have a few questions. We have a grant writer. Is there a possibility for grants
initially she looked at some, we would, obviously, if we had more of a scope and actual, information, we could kind of vet it more, but because Sugar Stand Park Community Center is not a shelter or not used for any emergencies, like that's not declared a shelter, there's not a lot of federal money per se, but there could be other opportunities, it just depends on the specs of the actual project. Or maybe some grants from private entities too.
And as far as a warranty, do they come with warranties?
No, but we would put that out there, but we would get back all the proposals and see what was out there for them.
And the maintenance, what kind of maintenance does it require?
Those are good questions. We'll see if there's a lot of maintenance. Oh, she has some.
We have solar panels on our house, 32 panels. We've had to do zero maintenance on ours. And it's actually quite cool because you can see it when you go on, the website, you can see actually how much energy you're taking in, how much the panels are taking in, and how much you're saving per day, per hour, everything. So it's actually quite cool. And what we could do, I don't know if anybody would be interested in this, if we did put solar panels, we could actually do like a dashboard in Sugar Sand as an educational thing, which if we did that, maybe we could get some sort of grant for that. And that might be something that I think the education people in Sugar Sand might really get excited about that. So that's something to look into as well.
Is there something on your phone too that you watch the energy?
I don't have it on mine because I don't sit there and watch it, but my husband does. He likes to watch. So, but yes, you can go on and you can see all the different, like how much you're saving and how much you're using and all that kind of stuff. So that is so cool. Yeah.
Financially, I don't think it makes a lot of sense for the memo. However, I would be happy to make a motion to further explore it and go out to the RFP. I'm more excited about two things that I think is very valuable. It's the educational component. So to me, you have to have that dashboard so people can see it. It's a learning experience. That is invaluable. So however that's designed to feed back into a science museum type center, I think is really important. And then number two, I think it's important to have dual sources of energy. So I think it's a good idea just to have it for the unknown. So from that perspective, I think it's great. So with that.
Just one little thing though, if you don't have like the battery storage for the energy that you're taking in, and if you don't produce extra, you can't use that. Like we don't have a battery pack at our house. So like if the electricity goes out, we can't use the solar panel energy without the electricity being on. See what I mean?
Yep.
So we still need a generator for when the power goes out. But we're doing a really good thing for the planet. So there's that aspect of it too. And I think with what is it that the COP27 that's happening right now and the feedback that we're getting on what governments are doing around the world, it's not enough. You know, I don't know, I feel like every little bit helps. So although we're a very small bit, but I think solar panels in Florida is just kind of like a no-brainer. So I'm fully on board with it.
Okay, so we have to make a motion to further explore it as well as the options, whether it's batteries, other different features of it, and how it can be best utilized. With the utmost importance that there is visible communication within the center. So savings that are done.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to look at the cost of the dashboard, and there's probably lots of different ones out there that we can see, that we can look at. And maybe the center can help us. I think they look at different options that they might want to.
I think both you and I, Aaron, were very much on board with the FPNL proposal, which unfortunately disappeared. I really like the idea of FPNL running their own kind of thing, where they had the umbrella trees.
The trees, yeah.
And if there was ever the opportunity to get FPNL, I'd definitely like to check them out again somewhere as a department, because they have ongoing community relation type programs, and I would work with them first to make sure that we're in coordination with whatever they're doing.
I'll second Commissioner Ernst's motion.
Okay, any further discussion?
Just one question. Is the community center set up as a hurricane shelter? It's not. Do we have a generator over there?
No, we don't. We have a generator at the field house mostly for the flooring, but the community center is not a shelter. It was used to house the turtles during some recent storms. That's it.
Okay, well, I think to create a motion, having the battery backup, I think where we can store it, that would be extremely helpful for us. Keep those turtles cooler and we have a storm. Seriously, I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
I would just, as Steve and I discussed, consult the insurance company, make sure there's no particular issues with them on the property insurance.
All right. Joanne? Commissioner Ernst?
Yes.
Commissioner Ringo?
Yes.
Commissioner Wellens?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsett?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright? Yes, motion passes. Okay, number 2, the budget amendment for fiscal year 2022.
Commissioners, on page 7 of your agenda packets, some information about the budget amendment. I'm going to turn it over to Rob Timberlake, our financial consultant, to introduce it and let you know what's happening.
Good evening, commissioners and district staff. Yes, we need to do an amendment to the prior year budget. Very simply, if you remember that in June, we had to refund to the Friends of the Cumberland $250,000 for as part of our understanding that was signed in June of 2019. So we need to make that amendment and we need to make it to the prior year. I prepared a resolution which I'd like to present to you tonight, which is resolution 2023-01, and recommend that you approve it. This sets up the appropriation and then checks the funding source for it. So we didn't have an appropriation for this year, and it's not a capital project. Could charge it to a capital project or it's not an open operation, but it's basically a revenue refund. The revenue was received in the 2020 year, so it's I've checked with their auditors and this is what they would recommend.
Okay. Discussion,
Madam Chair, I'm going to quickly offer, if you allow me to read the title into the record, you will have it on the table to consider, and you can debate and discuss, and then you can essentially take action on the resolution, Madam Chair. This is resolution number 2023-01, prepared by Myrtle. We thank you for that, Myrtle, very much. It's a resolution of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District of Palm Beach County, Florida, amending the budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 and providing an effective date. On the floor for consideration as presented by Mr. Timberlake. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I move to approve resolution number 2023-01.
Second.
any further discussion? Joanne?
Commissioner Ernst?
Yes.
Commissioner Ringo?
Yes.
Commissioner Wellens?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsett?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright? Yes, motion passes. Okay, number 3, 2023 schedule of district board meetings and holiday closings.
Commissioners, on page 10 of your agenda packets is we usually adopted a schedule for the upcoming year about this time. So this is the schedule of board meetings for calendar year 2023, beginning January 3rd, running through December 18th. We made a list of the observed holidays that usually affect some of our meeting dates, as well as holiday closings on the right-hand side. So just looking tonight for approval of this schedule.
Okay, we need a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Are you checking your calendar?
No. Looking to see if I could read these numbers right to the next page.
Yeah, we got Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Ringo,
Yes.
Commissioner Wellens,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsett,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, number 4, the Boca Chica City Council workshop update. You want to do this?
Our chair, Commissioner Wright, did a great job today presenting the Boca Chica plan. I also feel maybe I saw something a little different. I felt it was a positive meeting. I felt the council was supportive of the project and gave the go ahead to move forward on the plan. So
Yeah,
I didn't take it away.
They were a bit vague at the beginning. Kind of not answering the question, not answering the ask. But I did push them a bit and they all gave their thumbs up essentially. And not sure what, the city manager was, talking about. More specifically, like, he was asking for specifics. And I understand that as we get into the site plan and the planning process and things like that, we'll be providing all that. But, you know, we just wanted to go ahead, and I think, the other council members understood that, and, there were a couple comments from, Monica and, Yvette about, keeping golf on the northwest corner, that kind of thing, and I explained about the RFP, how it's better, Miller Lake decided that it was better to keep it, south, and we all discussed it, and majority said that we keep it south, so, so that I did explain that to her. What else? There were some comments on security and traffic and things like that, and again, I said those would all be addressed during the site plan and the planning process and all that. So, but overall, I think it was positive, and basically, you know, they said there was nothing that really stuck out that they could say, no, we don't want that. So they were all very positive about the overall plan. And I think once we go ahead with the planning process, I'm sure there will be sticking points and things we have to deal with. But overall, yeah, they said, go ahead, because I said, we don't want to waste any more money and any more time. So, I think they were positive, and I think Andrea and Monica and Yvette all really did say they want it to be a partnership, and they really wanted to work together on it. So I got very good feedback. Obviously Andy won't be there at the next meeting. We don't know who will be there. So we'll have to, develop a relationship with whoever will be new to the council, and hopefully they'll be supportive of the plan as well. And so, yeah, I got good feedback from them.
I spoke with Mike Cole and Lumi afterwards, and they're working on a scope to bring by the next meeting for managing the RFP process, so we can get moving on that, because obviously that's a concern for the public, is getting the golf course project out there, getting the P3 for the Market Center. So they're going to come back with a scope of work, and we'll start that process.
It's still not clear to me, after all the conversations we've had, that how we're gonna operate the golf course. Because I know Angelo Sands made a comment, and I heard from others that said, running the course itself, we were running it, and I heard mention the manager of the local country club right now as that assisting us with this as well. And the spinoff that would pay for the rest of our maintenance areas that we need to on that property. So I heard that again in our meeting today, is that, you know, the P3 is not going to spin off a whole lot of money to us. And I'm not sure that the P3 per se, using that terminology, is exactly what we're going to be able to do. I think Sam had given us some alternatives, but I think we need to consider the financial operation of the course and determine whether or not that's something that we want to take on as a district and fund and benefit from the profits, or are we going to pay somebody? Having somebody else do it may end up getting the project done sooner, maybe not necessarily so. But I think we need to decide how we're going to move forward with that. And, you know, the city manager was a little confusing to me, you know, talking to us like we were a developer. I mean, we had a concept there. And as our chairperson said, you know, these are placeholders in some respect. 10 years ago, we couldn't spell pickleball. Now we're putting up 18 pickleball courts over at Patch Reed. So just because something that's been designed there is a master plan doesn't mean that's actually going to happen. I think that my objective would be to get the golf course going at the earliest possible time, and not confuse that with other projects that might be going on at the same time. I think we'll have our hands full on just doing the golf course, but we need to decide how we're going to run it, whether we want to take any of the profits or whether we want to pay somebody to run it at minimal income to the district.
I mean, I thought when we were going through all this, I thought the P3 was what, for the racket and the golf is what we all came to the conclusion would be the best thing. That's why I said it at the meeting, because that's when we developed the PowerPoint and all that, we had discussed this at the meetings, that the P3 was the best option because we don't have funding for it.
I think that was one of the options that we were developing the entire, we've seen presentations where somebody took over the entire project. But, you know, all we are saying is a site plan with their ideas of what could go there, but there's not been a formal proposal to us. But, you know, if we're going to turn this over to someone and it will make it happen, I'd be more inclined to do that. But and Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, our naming legislation doesn't allow us to do a P3. That's what I understood.
If I may, Madam Chair?
Yep.
The legislation that controls this organization, the Special Act, speaks in terms of leasing and selling. And
That's not a P3.
That's not a P3 necessarily, that's correct. And at the end of the day, as you may remember, we sought an agency from Tallahassee, which we received a couple of years ago, that kind of bolstered the analysis that we offered, and the one that we've been discussing, which is the fact that we can't sell property, may not be able to lease property. That was within the terms of the Special Act. That there are other legal options and vehicles with regard to financing which could be explored, and we don't know what those are until you get back a response on a proposal. As I had mentioned before, in other venues, they have used concession agreements, for example, where, for example, in the Coral Springs situation with the ice arena, that was a concession document in the regional park, where they actually didn't sell the property, they didn't lease the property, they essentially concession the property, which is a financeable vehicle to be able to have the developer who built the golf course, the ice rink actually finance it. Perhaps a facilities management contract could be a workable solution that doesn't run afoul of the Special Act. I'm sitting here with general counsel. There are other options. I know at one time we even discussed these issues with Jerry Ford, and there were certain financing options that were viable or possible. So I wouldn't suggest that there's anything expressly contained in the Special Act which absolutely precludes a 3P program. 3P didn't even exist when the Special Act was written. It was amended over the years when it was redone going back to '74, but 3P is a fairly recent creature of statute of state law. So any option that would be financeable and how you characterize it, how you frame it, depends on what kind of response you get back, you know, in the context of what options you may have available. But I certainly wouldn't legally discount 3P as a viable legal option.
Well, I think we have to analyze what's the best option for us, whether it's the concession agreement or whether it's something that we developed in partnership with the city, their golf course. I mean, think about it this way. They have equipment that's sitting idle and they're not using it for maintenance. That's, you know, equipment that can be shared between the two entities. I think there's maybe some other cost savings, but I think we have to analyze that whether it's we're using somebody else's capital or we're using our capital to build in whatever term you want to describe it as. I think it's important that we analyze that to determine if that's something that we can get sooner by using somebody else's money, or if we can do it ourselves and cooperate with the city in the partnership that everybody seems to want to do. And that seems to be a good place to start.
Okay, just a couple of comments. Understood that we haven't received any proposals yet, but that's because we haven't gone out for RFP on the Lincoln's property. So that's what Miller Lake is working on with CBRE. To develop the RFP to put out for a proposal. And then we get the proposals back and we look at those and see if there's any options that would fit.
Financial analysis of each proposal.
Right, and I'm a little nervous now though, because when we did present this today, it was based on the fact that the golf was a P3, and that's what they were looking at. So I would hate to go back to them and say, well, we decided we'd rather work with you on it, and I just, I don't know, what their feedback would be if we go and say we want to work and develop this golf course with you on the west side. I don't know what their feedback would be, but we didn't discuss that today.
I don't know that that was tied in to their tacit approval, just how it was going to be built.
I mean, we weren't asking for any money.
This was the conclusion where you went back up for the last time that you mentioned the P3. So I think your mind was good about the site plan, how we got it going, and I don't think is necessarily an issue. And the reason I mentioned that, I don't know who all was seeing the other layout that was presented a couple of times by this couple. And I told them to get something submitted to us, because that would stimulate us to get an RFP put together. And if that, they never said that they're waiting on that for an RFP, but it makes sense for that to happen. But I don't want to close ourselves off and box ourselves in necessarily one way without looking at all the other options. Whichever's faster and most financially beneficial to us is what I want to consider us doing.
Mr. Gordon, I have some questions as far as the P3, for-profit P3 or a not-for-profit P3, and in relation to the bond. Is there anything that precludes us from having a P3 in the agreement with the city regarding the bond?
At the moment, without going into extremely deep dive, so to speak, I don't believe there is a violation. That it would be a doable option to consider it for sure.
So we could do a for-profit or a not-for-profit P3.
I'll leave that door open for discussion, but the answer is that I'm not aware of any preclusion specifically. And we did a memo, as you may remember, back in September of 21. And one of the key factors in the analysis of a proposal is the financing plan. Before an actual agreement can be signed, there has to be a plan in place that otherwise finances the project in a fashion which is acceptable to you and the public interest. So all those things being equal, they would have to be looked at that point. I wouldn't discount any option, by the way, legally or otherwise. At the moment. I think that the district has certain legal options, and by going to the street with the 3P, you have the absolute discretion to not proceed forward if the plan and the response don't meet your expectations. Including, by the way, unsolicited proposals, which are also contemplated by the statute as well, which you would have to consider in some fashion.
Well, let's just be sure, that's the method that we're going to advertise or leave open, that we're clear to do that before we go to that degree of asking for that kind of a proposal. I think that's, to Susie's point, I think it's important enough that's going to fly with our local agreement we have on our bond that we have on the property.
What we might have to look at is the possibility of dividing the golf course into two pieces. By that I mean a construction piece and an operation and maintenance piece. Because it makes a lot of sense for us to have the city operate and maintain. They already have a golf course that, it would fit right in. But then there's the construction piece. And when the city talks about a partnership, are they talking about a partnership in the construction piece, or just the operation and maintenance so they can take a piece of the profits? So that there's kind of like a gray area here. A 3P to me would mean we find somebody who's interested in developing the golf course and constructing it for us, and then operating it for us under some kind of financial agreement. But I don't know if that's what the city is looking for.
Well, I think I heard C3, P3, and 3P. So I don't know which one it is, but all of them. I say go with the plan you presented, Aaron, because we presented that, okay? And this is an evolutionary type process. And we don't even know if anyone's going to be interested in it. I can tell you that Delray has already marketed part of their golf course and has gotten, millions of dollars of offers to build stuff there with it, to build out the golf course differently. I'm not sure that they're actually going to do that because it comes with strings attached. just like anything we get is gonna come with strings attached. So, it's kind of a hodgepodge of different things. I agree with what our audience has said, on certain aspects. It would be nice, and I think it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to document at least what we've heard at our meeting. We have an understanding that we need to go forward. I do also agree that, I think I heard a couple times from our mayor, that prioritize the things that we know we need in priority order. And I know that from our statistical survey from Miller Lakes, walking trails were a top priority. And we also know that that came true with the joint funded one that we did earlier. So I think that tells me the east side is owned by us, and that's something that you can work the most on quickly. We have no issues with title or anything else. So definitely the west side comes with complexity of what will happen there. So to me, there's 4 different kind of RFPs. What are you going to do with each 4? Can they go simultaneously? Maybe. And if you do all 4 simultaneously, here's the 4 quadrants. You kind of come back and say, well, which one can we do and which one can they do? The city has far more expertise on the contractual part with P3s, I guess. And I think I would look to the city to participate, and to Steve's point, construction or operation. Usually someone who's constructing likes to operate it. So I don't know if ultimately that means the city. I'm not putting golf as the first and foremost priority because I don't know that it makes as much money as everyone says it does. Otherwise they wouldn't be selling golf courses the way they're doing today. And there's an awful lot of them being sold. So I do think though, a family-friendly, smaller concept course could do very well if done right. But usually it's done by a third-party operator who has a different type of structure and a different plan, and you have to have faith in it. It's like that whole cradle concept that we were sold on in the beginning. That is not something in our expertise or our wheelhouse to come up with a creative golf course concept. Not here in this city, not here in this district. So that's a third party telling you how they would really make it work. So my message is stick with the plan. You get out there, develop a part, let others tell you how to operate it. Learn from what they have to say. Pick the best of the best. And then you may decide, I don't want to do any of it, or I want to take this one particular and I want to modify it. And maybe we as a consensus with the city will come down a more narrow site plan for each quadrant. And we focus quadrant by quadrant. I do believe that we can control our east side a little better than we can handle the west side of the golf. To me, that is going to be more complicated because it does need the city's feedback, input, and legal commitment of how it's going to happen because it's still titled in their property in their name until we pay off the entire debt. And from that perspective, what I heard today is you're a developer. You take your time, give me the full gory details, and we'll tell you what we don't like. So to me, that's a long path. So.
Well, also, one thing that Scott did mention that I think we should think about too is what if we write these RFPs, we can also include that these developers include some of the mileage of the trails of what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Right? So let's say we put out an RFP for the Racket Center and we say, well, this looks great, but you also need to develop the trails in that same quadrant. Or the golf has to do the trail that we have planned in that quadrant and some of the preserve or something like that, that we include that in some of our RFPs that we write. But I think maybe we could start with go out and do the design for the hills. We know that quadrant we can do, right? And that doesn't include any P3s, that's just us. So we can start on the design of that straight away. We can do the dog park, we can do the community garden, we can do that. While still working and trying to figure out how the golf is going to work and how it works best for the city. I got from the city today that they want no part of the golf. That's what I got from them. They want a partnership in terms of getting this developed, But I don't, that feeling I got from them is they don't want any part of it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. And we can try to discuss it with them more. That's the feeling I got from them.
Well, I'll go back to about it. I don't disagree with you. I think the priority is the golf course, their golf course, the Boulder Country Club, and that's where the time and effort's gonna be spent. To me, it's a bit of a rabbit hole for us to fully develop and focus on designing a golf course. So the P3 is the option to make it creative and make it really good, and that's a third party. So I think you have to give it to the third parties to tell us how they think it would be set up best. We'll learn and develop it from there, and I think that's essential. So it's got its own path. And when it's all done, either we all believe it works or it doesn't work. But I think Tiger Woods' small concept is working well. The one that Bob mentioned out west is working well. Smaller whole concept, family friendly, short or quick. The driving range, I think, is terrific if it can be done. I don't know. I mean, I see the giant nets. I'm just skeptical of it, but maybe it can be done. If it can be done, the city allows it, okay. But there's a lot of questions that have to be further developed and flushed out.
And I think doing the RFP process for this and seeing what we get back will answer a lot of those questions for us,
Yes.
right? So I think if we get moving on that, and we get those responses back, we could get nothing back.
I would like to expedite that part from a standpoint, just get it out there, because you're gonna find out quickly, okay, the city's got great concerns about a golf driving range along 95 without having a net going to the moon. And then that's something that they don't want. Okay, that takes that off the table. Then you have a redesign of what you gotta do. Let's just kind of, it's gonna be a flushing out process, put a timeline on it. I would like to see our RFPs out there, get our ideas, by the end of February. So we at least have something. Then we have a more detailed conceptual plan for the new city council. And then we can say, okay, end of March. We know we can start, if they agree on one of the quadrants, we can start working on it. If it's ours, great. If it's theirs, we have to have the input and let them.
Well, I mean, we can do the hills, the
Exactly,
design at the same time as putting out the RFPs,
that's
right? So,
exactly.
those can be in line. I feel like.
I agree.
A couple of things that we need to do. First, I agree, let's get started on the quadrant that we own, because we're not beholden to the city. I think we need to get clarification from the city on exactly what they're looking for when they say partnership. Because what they may be looking at, well, they have a golf course, they want to make sure that whatever facility we build is as uncompetitive. And when I say uncompetitive, I mean, and not in competition with their facility. Partnership is a very vague.
Yeah, well, you go, good luck getting that answer from them.
Yes, yeah,
I think it's more of a working together partnership. I don't think it's a financial thing that they're
oh, no,
looking at.
I don't think they
don't
want to
think-
put a penny into it.
I think their focus, like Frank said, is their golf course. And they already specified that they want something that's going to complement their golf course, not something that's gonna compete with it.
Right.
So-
I also think that, we really need to get moving on the RFPs. We can get them out before, at the very latest, before the end of the year. I'd like to do that because bear in mind too, we have the approval of this version, this iteration of city council. Come March, there'll be, 3 surviving, for lack of a better phrase, members, and there will be 2 new members, of whom we have no idea at this point. And eventually to work on the northwest portion of the property, on city-owned portion of the property, we're gonna have to make sure we get their okay as well. But I want to have something, I agree with Craig, I want to have something to show them, to show that we're, you know, we're moving on it and we have an idea and we have direction.
Well, so do we have a motion to develop an RFP?
I'll make that motion to develop an RFP.
Sorry, I'm getting work orders at the next meeting I'm gonna have, because we don't have it in their scope right now, I'm willing to do this, where it could be an additional scope. So I'm gonna bring those work orders to the next meeting, then they would start the process of, if everybody approves it, they'll start the process of writing those RFPs. So at the very next meeting, we will have that process, and I'll put together timelines of stuff, so we can have a better idea if this is approved tonight, how long will it take to write the RFPs, when will they be out on the street, so we'll see all that at the next meeting, if that works for everybody.
Yes.
I think maybe that Mr. McWalters had mentioned this, or Greg. We should document our meeting with council in writing as to what our understanding was when we came away from the meeting. So we've got that committed.
Well, we have it on video, right? So
I'll write it, I'll send an email, I'll work with Aaron on an email
I think it'd be a good idea to just confirm that, because time does dim one's memory, at least it does for me. I want to be sure, you know, I've got two grandchildren, 16 and 14, and I want my great grandchildren to be able to play on this golf course. And so I think we have every right to do what we're going to do on the east side, but I don't want to do it at the expense of delaying anything on the golf. So I think we've had steady conversation with Kickoff and in Boca, and it's been one of the major went through top 5 things that need to get done. And if it hadn't been for the Kickoff and Boca and Greg Lance's group, they've been the driving force behind getting this done. And you know, I'd like to be able to play on I don't consider it an executive course. I think somebody answered the question quite well about what's the difference in Patch Reef and what you're planning, and 2 different types of golf courses. One's a recreation facility where you can put your kids out there and play without bothering anybody. And the others with where we can have both seniors and juniors can play the course rather than just as Greg said, the Open Top Country Club golf course is a challenge even for those low handicappers. So I think that to answer the question, this golf will be complementary to whatever the city has, and I think that there's some way we could capture some of their expertise in this process and be wonderful. There's really no way for us to design a golf course without doing like we did originally with Ocean Breeze, by getting, you know, interviewing architects. So putting this out to bid makes a whole lot of sense. How we develop this course and whose money, whose capital, I think that remains to be seen, just based upon what is the most financial expedient way to get this done to the community's benefit and to our treasury as well.
Okay.
So I think you're ready to go. It's
So
gonna
what
be,
she's working on.
so it's gonna do a work order for us as a group. You know, what I would ask is that, like we did for the initial, you know, mandate for Miller Lake, I think we should think about giving our friends at Miller Lake some kind of mandate for what that RFP for each quadrant should be. You know, there's just guiding principles of what we're looking for. To think about it individually. And then at that meeting, when they're given to Brianne, so when they develop the work order, they have these guiding principles for each, you know, course. And when I say that is, what are you looking for in it? So they've given a plan. Are we saying that it has to be profitable, or it has to be give money back to the district? I don't know. I think we want to have fulfill our mission here. We had a guiding principle of preserving green space. I think that's important. And that's still one of the guiding principles. We're also looking for recreation in each of the areas. And I heard pretty clearly they wanted inclusiveness in whatever the sport is. I think we've got a great plan. I like what we have. I would like to be sure that whoever participates in it says, this is what we put forward, but be flexible enough, there might be something else that they can offer that changes the scope of it slightly, and we have to be prepared to accept it and say it's a good idea or it's not a good idea. That's all. So when they go forward with it, we should have it, but be ready to give some guiding principles at our next meeting when we get there. Just a thought.
I'm a little confused by what you said, though. You're suggesting that they're gonna be writing RFPs for each quadrant?
Oh.
Okay.
It could be, if that's, I think it's better to do it separately.
They're designed to do too, so I got it.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so there's no motions that are needed, right? All right, so we'll do approval of payroll and invoices, right?
I wrote down the number really big so I can read it. $149,830.38. So I'm asking for approval for payroll invoices in that amount.
Second.
Okay, Joanne?
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Owens,
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rea.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, reports and discussion items, for the council, would you like to do that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick update for you. I don't know that you've all been advised privately thus far, but we're looking at exploring the current status of the temporary construction easement at the Ocean Strand. With regard to the potential abandonment of the site by the party that received the temporary construction easement. Koreans doing their homework and we're working together to figure out some of the answers. It appears that there may be an abandonment. We're not sure. We looked at the document that's reported. Just as a matter of reference, it expires in February of 23. The actual easement itself, the actual length of its term expires in February. We were commencing discussions with legal counsel for JJ Morley with regard to a potential extension of some additional modifications. It came to our attention through Leanne's homework that there may have been either a temporary or permanent abandonment of the site, which is of concern to us. May raise that on the record. To the extent that we raise it with you now, we believe that the executive record that the appropriate authority legally to put them on notice of the fact that they may be in default of their obligation to the TC. And if they are, there are obligations that are potentially further up. Okay, this is just it's an informational item. I'm not asking for specific legal action, but we're doing our homework. I have some legal concerns as a executive director. Monies were paid up front in connection with that easement, as you may remember, and there are some insurance policies that hopefully are still in place with regard to some of their activities, and to the extent that we will know more between now and the next meeting, we hope to. We're keeping our eye on it very carefully. At the moment, I do express some concerns about their behavior, particularly when we call a lawyer and hope we get a response back, irrespective of whether the client's going to perform a contract or not. Typically, lawyers are ethically obligated to have conversations with the colleagues, such as myself or our office. So I raise it, don't need a debate per se, but I want to let you know it's out there and raise that concern. And we appreciate the fact that Williams, everyone that I follow very carefully. That's all I have this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure. So I wish Commissioner Engel a happy birthday today. Hope you've enjoyed your birthday evening here. We've started the court resurfacing at Swim and Racket Center, so we had an opportunity to go out and see them working. It's a little dusty around here, but the court meeting resurfaced, so that's exciting. Just so, in case everybody missed it, we're in a hurricane watch. Just want to remind any residents listening or anybody out there, you can also log into you can go to the city's website at myboca.us and sign up for alerts to get alerts from the city about how it will be managed. They're going to meet in the morning and talk more as it develops overnight to see what the strength and rainfalls will be and what the decisions will be for prepping the city. So the best thing, I signed up for alerts for something, and now I get them for everything. So it's a really good system, even for recreational alerts, emergency alerts. You can go to myboca.us and sign up to get emails or texts. And then the safety assessments that are being done at the parks, it's an agenda item I'd like to talk about, maybe not at the next meeting, because there's some other things to talk about, but we're getting some lists back from the police department. They're not going to be comprehensive reports, so I kind of want to get those out to everybody this week, and then we can see if we want to take some further steps to increase the safety at the parks. And then future agenda items would be, as Sam led us into, the construction easement, either an amendment or termination of that agreement. We'll have a roofing recommendation coming up, and then, of course, the work orders from Miller Lake on P3s, the RFP management, and then we'll have a timeline as well. And go on how that will work.
Let's go first. Birthday boy, go first.
Aside from the thank you for the birthday wishes and a job well done to Aaron and Brian in presenting our case in front of city council. Got nothing else. And everybody stay safe this week.
Thank you, Aaron and Brianna. I thought it really went well. You ducked out at the beginning. I was a little worried, but you know,
When I what?
you left just before the meeting started. And I thought, oh shit, she's leaving. But you came back, so that was good.
That's a legal term, correct?
That's right. That's legal. The one thing beforehand, though, I guess, to reiterate for us is, and I do have the utmost respect for our volunteers who participate in things, and I mentioned it at the CRA meeting about the yoga, and the one element I regret that because I didn't realize that everyone at the city had already known about it, city council people, but I heard about it indirectly, and it just reminds me that our volunteers in the community are the most passionate people. And being driven and supported by the passion of those people on their sports or activities is essential. It makes the community great. So when we put a roadblock in front of a volunteer group, the natural reaction is, okay, I'm done. I don't do anything else. And we have a tremendous resource here as a group to, we have funding and we can help fund things. And I happen to look at the budget, recreation services, the total budget in their city plan was 31 million. A little over 31 million, what they spelled out their typical city book there. And then prior to that, there's a PDF page of all the funding expected from the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District, and it was around 26.8 million in this period. That's roughly 80% of recreation budget. That's a lot of money to the city. That's a lot of money to recreation. We're an important part of it. I hope that, and I really do like Greg Stevens. I think he's the right person to do it. But I do think that, we have to do our very best to keep the volunteers, positive efforts so they don't get shut out, on things, and that we can always, that the city takes action on these things, and it shouldn't come to a city council meeting. I agree with that. But at the same token, that's when we have to go to help keep programs alive and going. And they're important. So that was my comment.
Well, I would be remiss in not carbon copying what Steve and Craig said about your presentation today. You made me proud to see you out there because you do such a wonderful job, and you've really grown into this position, Aaron. And Brianne, thanks. I know you're a big part of the support group for Aaron, the chairperson, and so between the two of you make a great team up there. And it was great seeing you in action. I was trying to picture myself. I'm not as patient as what you are. If it hasn't already occurred to you, but I thought you did a marvelous job up there. As far as in addition, as far as the volunteers go, mimicking what Craig is saying, is that the soccer association has a lot of volunteers that are out there, and the city does a tremendous job working with those. I was at the fields at Spanish River, and I've seen where they were for the end of the season and where they are now. They just do a remarkable job of bringing the fields back and maintaining them. We're fortunate too that we have, a north and a south section that where they can flip flop those back and forth and do the proper maintenance and keep the recreation that's out of middle in the summer occupied. They're creative. They also have, the adult program. Sometime will play on the infield of the baseball fields over at the Spanish River. So It's just a wonderful job of what they do in managing the recreational needs of our city. And Greg Stevens has been around a long time. I sure hope that he was able to maintain that position because no one else knows the recreation system as well as what Greg does. I met with Kevin Beckman and Jim Henniger last week, because I think I mentioned to you about putting up a netting or fencing there on the, into the fields on the east end to keep balls from going in there. And it's not without some challenge to do it, but it's doable and it's not happening as fast as what I'd like to see it happen. But they are responsive. They're able to give us some numbers on that. And I see Aaron's grinning. I've witnessed in those bushes many times retrieving soccer balls. And it's pretty dense in there. You go in very tentatively so you don't step on something that might bite you. But anyway, I just think overall the recreation program is one that what Craig was saying about the expense. We do fund a good portion of that. The city is a very responsive partner in that. And I think that, I didn't hear the same thing about wanting to partnership with any funding over on our project. But I think if we work with them as closely as we're doing now, have conversations with the staff on issues as we go along so that we can anticipate things like the security. I think that's a big issue for the people who live there. And sorry for occupying so much time, but everyone stay safe with the hurricane out there. That's all I need is another storm to have to deal with. My business, but hopefully we'll be safe. It'll be just tropical rain and some mild wind. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anything?
I was watching from home and you both did a really, really great job, but Aaron, I love the way you went back and you asked for the order. That was, because I was afraid we were gonna walk out of there going, oops. I'm glad we have a direction. I do have a question, for Mr. Gorin or for Brianne. Is there equipment on the Ocean Strand site from that construction company? No.
Actually, yes. On our side, there is a dumpster and a porta potty. They've fenced off the site. We tried to reach out. Nobody's been out there, and now they've tried to contact the attorneys that are representing them. They have not been there. Right now, the city permits are still active, and there's one gentleman at the city that was out last week. I'm going to contact him tomorrow morning and see if he's aware of any updates. The neighbor mentioned there was some issues with the city permitting process, so I don't know if it's just a delay, but we non-responsive, and that's the concern, so.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a birthday, Steve.
Thank you.
Yep. So I had a couple of things. The first thing I wanted to bring up was, I don't know if we need to add this to the agenda, but I wanted to discuss longevity pay for our staff. They used to get it and they no longer get it. I do have the city employees longevity pay that they get every year. If there's 5 full years but less than 10, they get $600 annually. If they have 10 full years but less than 15, they get $800, and then more than 15, they get $1,000. So basically, it's like, and they get it right before Christmas, so it's almost like a Christmas bonus. And I feel like our staff really deserves a longevity pay. I know with my husband being a city employee, it does really help around the holidays for us. And I feel like to be able to do that for our staff would be a really great thing to do. They used to get it, and I'm not really sure what happened to it. I can't remember. It was like 2017, 2018, something happened. Don't really know what it was, but I'd like to discuss if this is something that you guys would be willing to reinstate for our staff as soon as possible. Can we put it on the agenda, or is it something we want to discuss real quick? and we can put it on the
I
agenda?
think we should put it on the agenda
Okay,
for next meeting.
Yeah.
Oh. I think we should put it on the agenda for next meeting. It's well worth discussing, but let's do it, you know, in a more, I don't know, formal is the right word. But,
yeah, and you guys would get the documentation that, what the city employees get to be paid, and then we can discuss it.
Madam Chair, if I can quickly, also in a legal fashion, Commissioner Engel, the answer is that you can discuss it theoretically this evening, but any action to implement it would require posting as well as a motion formally to direct the payment. So, pardon the interruption, but thank you.
We also look into why it stopped. You know, for part of the agenda.
Around my office is called Christmas bonus.
Longevity pay, bonus, whatever we want to call it.
Whatever reason, around the holidays, it's,
And then the other thing is just please go vote if you haven't tomorrow. Tomorrow is election day and it's very, very important for everybody to exercise their democratic right to vote. So if you haven't already, please do that. It'd be wonderful. Today, Andy Thompson, it was his last meeting. And everybody thanked him for his service. He's done a wonderful job. We wish him luck in the election and yeah, so please get out and vote. And everybody, residents, get out and vote. And that's it.
to adjourn.
second.
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Arnold,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogel,
Yes.
Commissioner White.
Yes. Okay, we're adjourned.